As called by the moderator, your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record, followed by your comments. If you share comments, concerns, or points made by others, please refrain from repeating those comments and instead note for the record that you agree with the previous individual's comments. There will be a 10 seconds remaining warning sound. Board members and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking so that the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presentive live and recording the meeting. Thank you. We will now move on to the agenda items. Are there any additions, deletions, or revisions to the agenda this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mike Folks, so moved.
I so move.
Mark Crumbaker first and Mike Folks second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The agenda for this evening has been approved. Are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest? Hearing none, are there any disclosures of external contacts or discussions?
Nope.
Hearing none, we will now move on to approval of the minutes dated October 17th, 2022.
Kathleen, Mike Folks, I make a move we approve the minutes for October 17th, 2022.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Mark Crumbaker, I'd second that.
All right. All those in favor of approval of the minutes of October 17th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We will now move on to board reports. Are there any reports of Board of County Commissioners actions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michelle Cricks, Johnson County Planning. I'd like to report that the project for the Baker accessory dwelling unit that this board heard at the October 17th, 2022 meeting was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on November 17th, 2022 with full support as recommended by this board. There was no November meeting, so that is the last project that this board heard that went to the BOCC.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes. Are there any, Planning Commission actions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michelle Cricks, Johnson County Planning. So the October Planning Commission meeting was canceled. So in November, the Planning Commission had a pretty full agenda. So first, planning staff sought input from the Planning Commission regarding amendments to the regulations regarding accessory dwelling buildings. This was for discussion only. No text changes were proposed. Planning staff anticipates bringing proposed text to the Planning Commission at the January 24th Planning Commission meeting. With the regards to the airport land use compatibility plan update, the next Planning Advisory Committee meeting is currently scheduled for January 30th, and public information workshops will follow that Planning Advisory Committee meeting. And then a second subcommittee meeting for the Sunflower Army Ammunition Conceptual Land Use Plan update was held December 9th. And the next subcommittee meeting is scheduled for January 6th, 2023. And I'd also like to note that the December Planning Commission meeting is canceled.
Madam Chair, this is Jay Leipzig. One thing I did want to say on the Sunflower conceptual plan, staff is looking at how we can expedite some of that process. We think we've got several meetings planned. We have one that's planned for January 6th and another one I think is the end of January 27th. My dates are correct. So we're looking at trying to expedite that schedule a little bit so we could bring it back to the Planning Commission probably in February or March.
Jim Neese, I'd just like to say some of us took a tour of the area and living out there and going by it lots of times, I really had no idea what was going on, and it was an excellent tour. I don't know if you know the magnitude of what's going on out there, but if you've got a minute, I suggest you go out and and go on the north side of that and take a look. They're working 24/7. And I mean, it's really major. And we took a tour around the entire facility, and I hadn't been on the west side of that facility up on by county line in a long time. And it's really, it's real rural out there, and like awesome. Like our, was it Mike or Bob?
Bill Mawson.
Bill Moss, excuse me, I went blank for a minute. He said like the people that live out here don't even feel like they're in Johnson County. They're more like in rural counties to the west. So it was an excellent tour, and I'm sorry everybody couldn't have done it, but you can do it on your own sometime. It's not that far from where we all live, but it's something to go see.
Thank you, Jim. And speaking of that, are there any board reports concerning the Sunflower Quarry inspection memo?
Just, Madam Chair, in your packet is the memo dated November 28th, 2022, in terms of the inspection report that was presented before the BOCC as well. And there were no comments to the BOCC on that either.
All right, thank you very much, Jay. At this time, we will move to business before the board. That would be application number NW 22-259 PP/FP preliminary and final plat, south side of 111th Street, east of County Line Road. I do want to list hearing procedures for this evening. The following procedures will be adhered to by the zoning board when considering applications for rezoning, development plans, plats, conditional use permits, or accessory dwelling unit permits. I would like for you to note that the chair of the zoning board retains the right to modify or deviate from these procedures if warranted. We will first introduce the applicant. Second, the planning office presentation, which will last 10 minutes or less. The staff will provide a brief overview and highlights of the written staff report. A copy of the written report is available upon request. We will then have questions of the staff from the zoning board. After that, the applicant presentation, which will last 10 minutes or less. The applicant shall provide a brief overview of the proposal and comments in response to the staff report. We will then have questions of the applicant from the zoning board. At this time, we will open the public comment section of our hearing. Public comments will be held to 3 minutes or less per individual. Please provide your name and address for the record. If you share concerns, comments, or points made by others, please refrain from repeating those comments and instead note for the record that you agree with the previous individual's comments. We will then have further questions by the zoning board of staff, applicant, or the public, at which time we will close the public comment section of our hearing. We'll have discussion of the application by the zoning board members, and then recommendation by the zoning board to the Board of County Commissioners. We will also announce the Board of County Commissioners meeting date and location. If there are any protest petitions, any protest petition must be filed in the Office of Records and Tax Administration, which functions as the county clerk, within 14 days from the conclusion of the public hearing held by the zoning board. RTA requires an original and 2 copies of the petition at the time of filing. Sample copies of protest petitions may be obtained from the Johnson County Legal Department at 111 South Cherry, Suite 3200, and that is here in Olathe, Kansas. Their phone number is 913-715-1900. And now the applicant, Wayne, excuse me. I'm going to introduce the applicant. At this time, I'll introduce the applicant, Wayne Malnikoff, and Clayton McCalman, landowner, requesting a preliminary and final plat for 4 residential lots on 60.4 acres on property zoned RUR Rural District in Section 14, Township 13, Range 21. And Michelle of the Planning Department will be giving the Planning Office presentation at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Northwest Consolidated Zoning Board. Good evening, Michelle Crooks with Johnson County Planning. This evening, I'd like to enter into the public record a staff report for case number NW 22259 PPFPLE, a request for approval for a preliminary and final plat for 4 residential lots on 60.4 acres located along 111th Street east of county line, east of the county line in the Lexington Township. And based on the findings of the staff report entered into the public record, Johnson County Planning staff is recommending approval of this application subject to stipulations. So here in front of you is a vicinity map showing the location of the subject property along 111th Street. As you can see, directly west is Douglas County, and it's just kind of nestled there between Douglas County and the city of DeSoto and the recently annexed Sunflower Army ammunition plant. The zoning of the subject property and surrounding parcels is zoned Rural District, RUR, as well as agricultural zoning in Douglas County. The minimum lot size in the rural district is 10 acres per the regulations. This table, which is also in the staff report, shows how the plat proposed would comply with the regulations of the rural district, such as minimum lot size, setbacks, lot depth to lot width ratio, and this project does comply with all those regulations. Based on topographical mapping, the site generally slopes from 111th Street to the southwest, collecting water runoff into a small tributary at the south end of the property and conveys that water to Captain Creek, which ultimately flows to the Kansas River. The south end of the property is located within the 100-year floodplain associated with this small tributary. And as you can see from the aerial here, bisecting the property is a line of dense mature trees. There are no current improvements on the subject property. It has been used for agricultural purposes in the past, such as grazing or other types of row crop use. The comprehensive arterial road network plan designates 111th Street as a type 2 major arterial street. So currently 111th Street is a 20-foot wide gravel road that requires a total of 120 feet of right of way. The proposed plat shows a dedication of an additional 40 feet of right-of-way to meet the 60-foot half-street requirement. No interior streets are proposed with this project. On type 2 arterial streets, 660 feet of lot frontage is required per driveway. None of the 4 lots individually meet this requirement. However, they do plan for driveways to be shared. And by sharing a driveway access, combined lots would comply with the 660-foot lot width requirement. You can see here on this graphic that shows kind of the locations of those shared access points on the drive. The applicant provided a site distance analysis to the county, which was reviewed and accepted by Johnson County Public Works, concluding the proposed location of the driveway entrances meet minimum recommended site distances. Sorry, just a moment. So here in front of you is just a couple quick pictures of the subject property. The very top is looking to the southeast from 111th Street. And the bottom picture is a little further to the east from that first picture. There's a little access point off of 111th Street that I took in and then just look straight west, just kind of to highlight the current nature of the site. You can see that line of trees and kind of that general slope to the south and west. Here's a copy of the preliminary plat with the proposed site layout. Staff reviewed the infrastructure requirements for the plat, including water, roads, and sanitary sewer, and determined the plat meets all of the requirements. Lot sizes are proposed to range from 11.1 acres to over 20, complying with the minimum lot size requirement in the rural district. And then here's just a quick copy of the final plat. As you can see, it's pretty much looks exactly like the preliminary plat you saw in the previous slide. The county's rural comprehensive plan shows this site is in the low density rural growth policy area of the Sunflower Army Ammunition Plant Conceptual Land Use Plan, originally adopted in 1998. If the public infrastructure is available, this area would be appropriate for 3 to 4 dwellings per acre. However, If no public infrastructure is available, such as in this case, then the property would be appropriate from one dwelling unit per 2 acres to one dwelling unit per 10 acres per the comprehensive plan. This is the City of DeSoto's comprehensive plan, and it is shown because the site is in the City of DeSoto's growth area. And that plan was last dated of May of last year. And the proposed plat is consistent with the county growth policy area for the City of DeSoto with minimum lot sizes of 10 acres per dwelling unit. It is staff's opinion the proposed density of 4 lots on the approximate 60 acres is in keeping with the comprehensive plan. I would like to note for the record, staff did receive 1 phone call regarding concerns for the project. And those concerns included impact of increased traffic, the future of Evening Star Road, and the poor water table in the area. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary and final plat of a 4-lot residential subdivision to be known as McCalman Acres, located on 111th Street, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report. And here is a suggested motion if you choose to use that. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Kathleen Wilnauer. Thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions of the planning office from the zoning board members? Hearing none, we'll move on to the applicant presentation.
I would like to note that the applicant or the property owner is available for to answer questions, and I believe that their engineer is available on Zoom. So if there's questions for either one of them, they're available.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We will then move on to questions of the applicant from the zoning board. Are there any?
Only question I would have is, are your neighbors okay with this project? Are they part of it? Do they know what you're doing? Have you talked to the neighboring property owners?
My name is Clayton McCalman. My address.
I don't think he was meaning to talk, so that's why I just removed his permission to talk.
Hi, my name is Clay McCalman. My address is 31473 West 171st Street, Gardner, Kansas 66030. And what was the question that you would like answered?
From me?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, have you talked to your neighbors and is anybody hollering about it? Like they don't like it?
not that I'm aware of. I think our direct neighbor on one side's a rental, and I did talk to a rental company at one point.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Hearing none, thank you very much. We will open the public comment section of our hearing this evening. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments on Zoom? Are there any further questions by the zoning board of staff, applicant, or the public? Hearing none, at this time, we will close the public comment section of our hearing and we will discuss the application among the zoning board members. Is there any discussion?
It's pretty straightforward to me.
Would someone like to make a motion for a recommendation?
Carol Kreska. I Move to approve a preliminary and final plat for 4 residential lots on 60.4 acres to be known as McCallum Acres for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by staff and listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Carol. We have a motion on the floor from Carol Crisco. Do I have a second?
Mark Crumbaker will second that.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any other discussion? Then we'll hold our vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? And we will send our recommendation for approval to the Board of County Commissioners, and then they will hear this at their meeting. And Jay, when will that be? Or Michelle?
Actually, Michelle Cricks, Johnson County Planning. Thank you, Madam Chair. This project will be scheduled for the January 19th, 2023 Board of County Commissioners meeting. That meeting will start at 9:30 a.m. here in this room at 111 South Cherry Street, 3rd floor board hearing room in Olathe, Kansas.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there any other business before the board? Hearing none, I would entertain excuse me, Jay.
Leipzig, sorry, I should have got in there sooner.
That's all right.
Jay Leipzig Planning Department. I wanted to note a couple of things in the packet. There is a, in that was a letter dated preliminary procedures for meetings. There's not a letter, it's a memorandum from our legal department, and also a summary sheet for Robert's Rules of Order. This is kind of a follow-up to the training that we had back in October. It's probably primarily for the chair, but I just thought it would be some useful information for you on conducting meetings. So I'll kind of point that out for the record, that was in the packet. And then the other item is we are, as we wind down the year and we go into January, we'll need to conduct the election of officers. And I don't know if we have any cases scheduled for the January meeting, but if we don't do it in January, we should have an election of officers in February. So we'll have to elect a chair and a vice chair.
Jay,
Forthcoming.
I've got a question. In the procedures that the chair reads beforehand, where she introduces if we had 5 people here, wouldn't it be a little awkward to introduce all 5? Aren't they introduced when the staff takes on the charge of explaining what each one of the deals are in order?
For each
Just saying,
application. Yes.
and when they get a little awkward if there are 5 or 6 people, and that's just a,
Yeah, Commissioner Neese, we can, that can be varied too, but generally, yeah, it's as each case comes forward, that application or that applicant would be introduced. But frankly, you could do it either way as long as it's as the applicant is introduced, or the timing of it, but.
Hey, Carol Kreska. Hey, Jay, did you say those things should have been in our packet? Because mine packet only included the agenda and the application and the minutes, and then the drawings, graphics.
They should have been in your packet. At least they were in my packet, unless I'm.
They weren't in mine, just so you know.
Okay.
Never in mind.
Okay. We'll make sure that everyone receives a copy of that as well.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jay. Then again, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. And do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
I do have one.